Hello students, welcome to this new video where we are going to start a new topic, that is vegetative propagation, and this is the last method of asexual reproduction. In the previous video itself we have discussed about the fission, budding, fragmentation, regeneration and spore formation methods, where we have seen how unicellular and multicellular organisms are going to produce new organisms from their body parts other than the sexual mode of reproduction. But here in this vegetative propagation we are going to discuss that this specific process is related with the plants only. None of the animals are going to take part asexual reproduction with the help of vegetative propagation, and why we call it vegetative propagation. So let's start today's video. So from the name itself, when we talk about what do we mean by vegetative propagation, when we talk about the plants are having two specific type of body part. The first one is known as vegetative and the other one is known as what? Reproductive. So what do we mean by vegetative part of plant? Vegetative part of a plant, actually it is a part that is responsible for growth. So the part that is responsible for growth of the plant. So perhaps if we consider the plant body parts, so we will see there what? Root, stem and leaf. If the roots are growing well, developing well, it means they will anchor the plant firmly in the soil, and they will also absorb more and more water and mineral so that the plants can perform photosynthesis. It means if the roots are growing, the growth of the plant will also take place. In the same way, when we talk about the stems, it means stems are providing support and they are conducting water and minerals from from soil to the leaves. So if the stem is also developing and growing, and we know that branches are the modified stem, so as well as the stem will grow, the plant will also grow. And when we talk about the leaves, since these are the parts where food is going to synthesize, so their direct impact will be on the growth of plant. So these three parts in the plant, that is what? Root, stem and leaf. These three parts are considered as the vegetative part of a plant. What are these parts? Root, stem and leaf. And apart of this, one more part is there, that you know, flowers. Flowers are considered as what? Reproductive part of the plant, because flowers are going to take part in the sexual reproduction. And when we talk about the propagation, what do we mean by propagation? Perhaps in the physics also you have read this. Propagation of light, sunlight. So propagate means what? To spread. To spread means when we talk about the spreading, so how do living organisms can spread themselves? Just by providing new organisms or new individuals of their same kind. So when we talk about the definition of vegetative propagation, what will be the definition? Actually, it is a process. It is a process where plants are going to produce new organisms of their kind, by vegetative parts. And these vegetative parts are what? Either root, stem or leaf. And this is what? A mode of, or a method of asexual reproduction. So today we are discussing this vegetative propagation, and it is a process where only plants, when we talk about the plants, they are going to produce new organisms with the help of their vegetative parts. And what are vegetative parts? We have already discussed here: root, stem or leaf. So when we consider how this process is going to take place, actually this process takes place by two ways. The first one is known as what? Natural, and the other one is known as what? Artificial. So this vegetative propagation can take place in both the way. The first one is what? Natural, and the other one is what? Artificial. So naturally, the plants are going to grow new individual by root, stem and leaf. And when we talk about the artificial, we the human beings are going to create some modified change there so that the plants can provide new organisms. So these are the method: the cutting method, layering, and the last one is what? Grafting. So we have to discuss about these natural and artificial methods, how the plants are going to produce new organisms with the help of root, stem and leaf, and how we the humans are going to create some changes in this vegetative propagation artificially, like cutting, layering and grafting. So let's start from the natural method. So when we talk about the natural vegetative propagation, it can be done by the stem, root or leaf, and we know the modifications in the stem, that few of the stems are known as what? Tubers. For an example, potato. So we know that potato is what? A stem, and they are known as tubers. Why? Because they store starch in them. This is what? Again, a stem, that is known as what? Bulb, and it is an example. When we take the example, we can see onion and garlic, example of bulb. And this is what? A modified stem, that is known as rhizome. And when we take the example, we can see here ginger or turmeric. So these are the modified stems which are going to develop into new organisms, new individuals, new plants with the help of their stems. Perhaps many of you are aware about some small structures that are going to be present here on the potato, that is known as bud, or simply we know them eyes. So with the help of these small buds or eyes, when these are going to detach from the parent body and going to grow into the soil, they are going to germinate into a new individual, new plant. Perhaps you have chopped the onion from the TS, transverse section, horizontally, and maybe you have seen there some internal structures like this, means they are separated from one another. Actually these are what? These are the buds. Here at the center you can see these are the buds which are going to germinate from the parent individual, and here you can see that is what? Condensed stem, and these are what? Fleshy leaves. So when we talk about the onions, at the downside this is what? Root. Just gripping the root, there is a condensed form of stem, and from the stem new buds are going to arise, and gradually from the one parent individual, from the one individual onion, we can see the development of new onion plants from the body part, that is known as what? Stem, because here you can see the condensed stem, and from the stem new buds are going to arise. When we talk about the rhizome or ginger, again you are observing some small buds which are going to germinate here, and these buds are capable to grow into individual new plants. So this is what? A phenomenon of natural vegetative propagation that can be seen in the stem. We have the examples of tubers, potato, bulb, onion and garlic, and rhizomes like ginger and turmeric. When we talk about the root, since you know this is what? The root part, and it is an example of sweet potato. We can take the example of sweet potato. So This is again a modification in the root where they are going to store some food material in their roots. So each and every single root is able to detach from here and it will arise into a new individual plant. So each of these roots are able to produce new plants from themselves. And when we talk about the leaves, there we can see the example of bryophyllum and begonia, where we can see at the margins, at the edges of the leaves, some small buds are going to arise, and each of these buds are capable to grow into a new individual. So this is a process of vegetative propagation where in the species of bryophyllum and begonia, some new plants are going to germinate from the buds which are going to grow at the margins of the leaf. Here we have seen that few of the modified roots which are going to perform the function of storage food in them, they are also capable to grow into a new individual plant. And here modified stems like tubers, buds, rhizomes or runners, they are capable to grow into the new plant. So this is what natural vegetative propagation. Now we will see how the humans are going to create some changes in this, and they are going to develop new plants with the help of artificial propagation. So after having a knowledge of vegetative propagation, humans have created some techniques to multiply and grow some desired characteristics plants in a very short period of time, and these techniques are known as what artificial vegetative propagation. And we are going to discuss here three main type of artificial vegetative propagation techniques that are known as cutting, layering and grafting. So in cutting, this is the simplest one where we are going to cut a portion of the stem, or generally it is known as stem cutting, where we are going to cut a section of branch or part of a stem and going to sow it into the soil, and from the nodes which are having some buds with them, so it is what a bud, and this region, you know that these are what nodes. So we have taken here example of what sugarcane. So this technique is very common in rose and sugarcane plant, where if we are going to cut a portion of this plant and going to fix it into the soil, if we are going to dip it into the soil, so from the bud the adventitious roots first they will germinate, and then after the shoot of the new plant will germinate, and finally this part of the stem will grow into a new individual plant. So this method is very common in the rose plant and sugarcane, and perhaps you have seen the cutting method in the rose plants. If you are going to cut a branch from the rose plant and going to fix it into the soil, after some day it is going to create a new individual rose plant with the same characteristic of the parent plant. Now the next method is what? Layering, where it is very common in lemon or jasmine plant. So when we are going to move or bend a branch of the plant into the moist soil, so this is known as what? Layering, where we are going to bend a branch into moist soil, and then from the soil some roots are going to germinate. So after germination of these roots, this whole section is going to develop into a new plant. So from one branch of the plant, another new whole plant can be germinated, and this process is known as what? Layering. It is very common in lemon and jasmine. And the last method is what? That is known as grafting. So in grafting method, we are going to mix the two plants, means the one part is what? That is having root and fixed in the soil, that is known as what? Stalk, and the another part that is not having the root part, means the stem part, that is known as what? Scion. So what we are going to do, from the root section of the plant, we are going to implant another part of the other plant on this part, and we are going to tie it tightly. We are going to tie it with the help of some ribbon or some rope, so that both of these parts can be held tightly, and we are going to fix it in such a manner that their connective tissue, means the vascular tissues, are going to tight properly. So this method is known as what? Grafting, and it is very common in horticulture purpose, means apples and grapes, they are generally grown by this method, where characteristic of two different plants are blended together so that they can germinate and we can get the desired species and characteristics of plants. So these are what? Three methods of artificial vegetative propagation: cutting, layering and grafting, introduced by human beings when they aware about the vegetative propagation in plants. So these were all the methods of asexual reproduction: fission, budding, fragmentation, regeneration, spore formation, and finally vegetative propagation, that we can see only in plants, where we have discussed about the natural method or process of vegetative propagation as well as artificial methods: cutting, layering and grafting. Now when we talk about the advantages of vegetative propagation, so as we are observing here, there is no need for the formation of seed, flower. So it is very rapid and short time process, and from the one individual plant, many of the new individual plants can be grown, and we can also get the desired characteristics. So whatever characteristic we are observing or we are willing to grow in enormous number, we can select that characteristic of plant and we can grow from their vegetative plant a number of new plants. So these are the advantages of vegetative propagation. And when we talk about the drawbacks of these vegetative propagation, since from a single parent a number of individuals can be grown in a short period of time, so a lot of time they create overcrowding there, and due to overcrowding, many of the plants cannot survive because they will feel difficulty to absorb the same type of nutrients from the environment or the same place. So this is a disadvantage of this vegetative propagation. One more disadvantage is this, that if any parent plant is suffering from the disease, so the all offsprings which are grown by this vegetative propagation, they all will suffer by the same disease, and if they are not capable to adopt themselves, so the whole member or the whole species is going to face difficulty. So these are some disadvantages along with the advantages of vegetative propagation. So a number of questions are asked in the examination by these topics. Various times the questions are asked from the regeneration, means which is the mode of reproduction represented by the planaria. So planaria represents what? True regeneration method. Even hydra can also perform a regeneration method, but hydra normally do what? Budding method. So if the question is asked in the exam, even hydra is having the regeneration ability, but hydra usually reproduce with the help of budding process. So regeneration can be seen in planaria and starfish and also in the hydra. When we talk about the spore formation, all the fungal species, they are going to form spore and they can grow new individual with the help of these light-weighted structures that are known as what is spores. Fission means binary fission. It can be seen in the eukaryotic as well as prokaryotic unicellular organisms like bacteria or protozoans. And when we talk about the fragmentation we are going to see in the filamentous algae. So a lot of questions even asked, that is what are the advantages and disadvantages of vegetative propagation. So I hope Now you will be able to tell a lot of questions and solve these questions if it is going to ask in the examination. So keep learning all these topics and keep studying. So we will start the sexual mode of reproduction in the next video. So till then, take care of yourself, be safe and keep studying.